I want to welcome everybody to the Daily Cheat Sheet here with the dude and Golan. Hope all are well. There is a lot to get to today. A lot. I have not seen a news day like this in a long time, but they're releasing the Epstein files. They voted on it. They're a subject everybody knows absolutely hate talking about. And Golan, I was just thinking to myself, before the show you were saying it's been, Trump's had to raise his voice a lot this week. And I was thinking to myself, if you were in the Epstein files, in the sense that you were spoken of, 17,000 times, however many thousands of times it is, but it was never actually you. It was spoken about you. So you have Michael Wolff, who was, just a bum reporter writer, been discredited, been defrocked as a writer or journalist of any sort, using Trump's name in probably thousands of emails. You have a congresswoman who they should censor or kick out for actually talking to Epstein during the impeachment trials about Trump. If you're Trump, you're screwed because nobody is ever going to read the articles. They're going to only see his name being brought up 34,000 times. And that's the problem with this. There's zero nuance. Trump understands this better than anybody. And no point, here's the thing. There's nothing that says Trump spoke to Epstein. That should be the top of any clickbait lead, but it's never going to get the clicks if you put that on top.
You're absolutely right. Look, this is a catch-22 because this is how all conspiracies work. And I know that we've had these conversations about maybe don't use the word conspiracy theories sometimes, or conspiracy theories are the things that, when you mention it, people automatically get their back up against the wall. But we gotta address the elephant in the room, which is that when conspiracy theories abound, you can't disprove a negative. And in fact, when conspiracy theories are thought of, they are designed to be like water off a duck's back. Nothing can get them wet. So if you're like, here's all the evidence, they're like, that's the evidence that you're lying. If you're like, look, I'm not in there. Oh, that's because you redacted it. But this proves that I'm not part of it. This proves that you are part of it because you're not mentioned. There is no way to win. And so when you look at this situation where he's mentioned X number of times, and he's been mentioned X number of times, both in emails that do not, and I think any honest broker, regardless of where you stand politically, has to admit this, does not show guilt, but his name's there. So now they can just point to his name over and over again. They can say the words Epstein and Trump and Epstein and Trump over and over again. And it's guilt by association. And no matter what happens, whether he releases the files, whether he doesn't release the files, cannot win, because no matter what is out there, someone's going to just figure out a way to make that seem like he's still part of a conspiracy. It's untenable.
I think that's extremely well said. And Mend, I know you've been in favor of releasing them, but this is one of the consequences of it, is that, just to use yourself as the perfect example of somebody that was duped, right? You were living in Canada while the Charlottesville hoax came out, and that's actually him talking, right? But people being deceitful with what he said, or just use the BBC editing and slicing.
I was about to mention the BBC.
From January 6th. So those are actual times where they've lied about, or the bloodbath comment, right? These are actually times where he's spoken and they've been deceitful. In this case, his name is
and the full context is available still on tape.
Right, but man, in this case, he has nothing to do with it.
I don't really get the point that you're trying to make. Releasing the files is a good thing. You do a dump and let people go through it. And if there's any incriminating
but that's the point, is nobody's going through it.
It doesn't matter. Without releasing the files, they're writing stories every single day that Trump and Epstein were best friends. So what are you trying to protect by not releasing the files?
I never know. That's not what I said. You didn't listen to what I said. I said, as they're releasing these files, I understand why he didn't want them released.
Why?
Because it's a damned if you do, damned if you don't. You're still going to get the same outtake. You're going to have his name said. You've seen these stories all over CNN that say he's in it 17,000 times. No, it's Michael Wolff talking to Epstein about Trump. Nobody's ever going to get to that part of the story, is my point.
Well, what's come out so far in the emails is Epstein said, quote, "I've met some very bad people, none as bad as Trump. Not one decent cell in his body." In another email, Epstein claims that Trump knew about the girls and Trump kicked him out of Mar-a-Lago and asked Ghislaine to stop trying to recruit people from Trump's orbit. Trump now says that both those emails vindicate him. They show that clearly Epstein had disdain for him, hated him, and that Trump cut him off and kicked him out a long time ago. So again, I don't see how releasing this stuff hurts Trump. Releasing this stuff, this is not about Trump. This is what you guys don't get. You guys keep on running with this thing as if this is a Trump gotcha. This is an attempt to bring those people that are culpable.
You're misrepresenting my position.
Okay.
I did not say that. I never said that.
But you guys keep on saying, I don't want to hear about Epstein anymore. I don't want to hear about Epstein anymore.
I don't want to hear about Epstein anymore.
I
don't want to hear about Epstein anymore. Not because of Trump. Trump has nothing to do with Epstein.
Why not? Then why not?
Because it is a distraction from things that actually matter. Are there things, if you're going to tell me that the releasing of these files is going to, and we know it won't, is going to bring to justice people who actually participated in this, as far as I'm concerned, so far there's no evidence of any sex ring, but let's say it existed. Let's say, he was convicted not of being a guy on his own with a girl who recruited girls for him. Let's assume that all the conspiracy theories are true. He has a big sex ring, pedophilia ring. He's blackmailing everybody. He's filming all the famous people. Let's assume it's all true. And now we're going to find out who everybody is, and everyone's going to be brought to justice, and all the girls are going to be, they're going to get their justice, and everything's going to be hunky dory. It's not going to happen. But if that was the case, we'd be having a different conversation, because then we're talking about there is a criminal act, there would be an investigation, then there would have been a determination of guilt, and then there would have been a trial or whatever, right? Okay, that's not what's happening. We're just releasing a bunch of stuff, and then everyone's going to shout about what they think the interpretation of those things are. Nobody's going to be brought to justice. Nothing's going to change. It's just a distraction. And that's all it is. That's what the Democrats are using it for, and that's what the Republicans are using it for.
Well,
when they flood the zone with 20,000 emails on either side. But absolutely. Why are they using it successfully? Because of the mechanisms they've got behind it. So, and by the way, I'm not even saying they're wrong to do it. If I was politically, I would be malpractice not to use this.
Yeah, and
right?
the way you
because
shut
they know
everyone up,
they can lie about all of this stuff. So when they release these files, but you're not putting it to bed. That's my point. That's my point. You're not shutting it down.
You're not.
You're not putting it to bed.
Honestly,
if it's released for wait a second. I didn't say not to release the file. Judah said, I can see why I wouldn't. That wasn't my position. I have a different position. My position is release them. Fine. Don't release them. Fine. Make a decision and do something about it. If you're going to do it, do it. Get it out of the way. Get it off my plate. But it will never be off my plate. In fact, the more is released, the more the conspiracy theory is fed, the more they will continue to say, I interpret this and this and this, and it will continue to expand, and nothing is going to change. No one's being brought to justice.
Okay, 1 second.
And all it is a distraction.
How many people still believe the fine people hoax?
Forget about that.
No, that's a huge
Forget about
thing.
That. It has nothing to do with it. The way you deal with this is you do the dump and you let the chips fall where they may. You don't hide it. You don't lock it in a file cabinet and say, nobody can see it because you're going to create conspiracy theories out of it. No, you dump it all out there. This guy already got off with a sweetheart deal once in Florida, right? He was a pedophile. He was convicted and he got a home confinement or something. He got nothing.
First of all, by the way, I never said don't dump it.
So I don't even understand what we're arguing about.
I said I could understand why somebody would not want something dumped when their name is mentioned in it 17,000 times.
There's a lot of names mentioned in it.
That's the
point. Mentioned in it doesn't mean anything.
There is a real risk.
Come on.
There is a real risk that this becomes a political weapon. Now, just imagine for a moment, imagine powerful figures on both sides being tarred with allegations before evidence is tested, or throwing allegations around before evidence can land, right? Undermines everything when it comes to fairness, equal justice under the law. This is an opportunity for conspiracy theories to abound and for political weapons to be sharpened. That is an issue. Now, I didn't say don't release them. I just said this is what we're going to see.
Do you know what's worse than that?
Larry Summers today.
Hold on. Yeah, I know. But hold on. Do you know what's worse?
Hang on. Wait, Larry Summers what?
Larry Summers today, Obama's former head of the Treasury, Harvard guy. In the emails, you could see he was had some extremely sordid, romantic questions of Jeffrey Epstein, Democrat, obviously. And he has now said he's going to excuse himself from public life. So
not so much. He's actually so this is the Former Harvard University president Larry Summers, a Democrat who worked for Obama, like you said he would be stepping back from public commitments. He's not resigning from Harvard, which Elizabeth Warren is calling for him to resign and Harvard to fire him, is what she's actually calling for. He got criticism over his correspondence with sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. He goes, I am deeply ashamed of my actions and recognize the pain they have caused. I take full responsibility for my misguided decision to continue communicating with Mr. Epstein. Now, this is after Epstein was convicted of pedophilia, child rape, whatever he was convicted of. Summers said that he's stepping back from public commitments as part of my broader effort to rebuild trust and repair the relationships with the people closest to me. And then Elizabeth Warren goes, if he had so little ability to distance himself from Jeffrey Epstein, even after all that was publicly known about Epstein's sex offenses involving underage girls, then Summers cannot be trusted to advise our nation's politicians, policymakers, and institutions, or the next generation of students at Harvard. So Warren is calling for him to actually be fired. Summers did not do much. He gave a BS apology, and he's just stepping away from public commitments while he stays on at Harvard. And it's also worth noting that Harvard built a reputation of being like the hardest American university to get into. But as it turns out, once you're in, good grades is given to everyone. From 2005 to 2006, 25%.
Hold that. Yeah, it's an interesting story, but I don't want to get off of where we are now. You by the way, it wasn't rape. It was 2008. He was convicted of solicitation of prostitution and solicitation of prostitution with a 17-year-old. Okay, so just so we don't misstate.
He's underage, right? That's
yeah,
underage.
correct. Yeah, solicitation, correct. Yeah, solicitation of a minor, 17.
I would assume that's statutory rape, by the way.
Solicitation is not the same thing as going through with it. He was convicted of solicitation.
Thank
In
you.
any case,
thank you for being a.
Look, Megyn Kelly taught me. I'm just kidding. Let's not go there. So
Listen, at the end of the day,
wait. Let me just say this one thing. This is what I want to say. The downside to this, and by the way, I want to clarify before I say this so Men doesn't attack me for the wrong thing here. I agree. Transparency, accountability, no BS, no theater. This is good. Release everything, get it all out there. But let's be aware, this is the world we live in now. The downside of this is if it's done improperly, if it's done willy-nilly, if it's done in a way where everyone can just take it and come up with 1,000 conspiracy theories that they're all going to put online, they're all going to put on the podcast, they're all going to put on the news, and everyone's going to be fighting everybody to show how bad everybody is, then the most important thing is we will damage the victims, we will damage innocent people, and we will damage our own moral authority. Those things can occur and will occur because of this dump, number one. And number two, this will not settle any conspiracy theories. It will inflame them. This is something we know already. Is we can respect the truth all we want. We can respect the victims. We can respect the law. This is going to be something that is going to cause more trouble, not less. So while I agree with the transparency, and I'm glad maybe the dump will get us to hell faster, we're still going to hell.
Absolutely disagree. I don't see how you could get more conspiracy theories when you dump the information than you would if you're hiding the information and saying, no, you can't see it.
Can I give you an example? Okay. So there were 3 emails out of 20,000, 3 lines and 3 emails that they yanked out of context to show us how bad Trump was. I didn't read the 20,000 emails. Did you?
What 3 emails are we talking about?
Ones you just cited.
They actually make Trump look good.
Yeah. Again,
that is Trump's interpretation, and the other side
it's not.
saying
clearly, Jeffrey Epstein said he hates the guy.
How you look
he said,
at
"I hate the guy."
Wait a second, Mend.
You can't claim that they were rapist buddies.
That, Mend. You are saying that, and the left
Epstein
is saying,
said that.
And no, Epstein said he's a bad person. He knew about the girls. He's the dog that didn't bark. I read those same 3 lines that you read, and everybody on the other side is interpreting them as a conspiracy theorist should in the worst way possible, which means you're saying, see, he hated him and therefore he's a good guy because Epstein's bad and he hated a good guy. And they're saying Epstein, the worst guy in the world, recognized that Trump was even worse than him. And he's the guy that hasn't even come together.
Nobody's buying that. Nobody's going to buy that. It's ridiculous.
Man.
It's ridiculous.
I appreciate your naivete,
hiding these emails,
but that is naive.
And if you think hiding these emails is somehow going to make the
It's
conspiracies
not what we're
less.
saying. Well,
Nobody
this
said
is,
to hide them.
again, you're misinterpreting
Again,
what we're
I
saying.
am all for the
What
release.
world are you living in that you don't think that those three things you said out loud are going to be misinterpreted by half of the country? Of course they will be.
And they
Of
already have
course.
been.
It doesn't matter how much you want them not to. Again, Mend, how many people still believe the Fine People hoax?
Honestly, I
already
cannot
happened.
understand what you guys are saying.
Well, that's
Clinton
because you
was
don't
on his
want
plane.
to.
Clinton flew on his plane something like 26 times. That guy's going to be in those emails a bazillion times. So you're going to tell me this is going to be worse for Trump, who Epstein's saying, I hate the guy. He's the worst person I've ever seen in my life. That's going to be worse than Clinton raping people on the plane, allegedly. What are you talking about? Release the files.
The
Let's
question
move
is,
on.
what are you talking about? What world are you living in?
You're
where
living
you
in a
think-
world where you're
where-
telling me that it's better to hide information to
Again,
prevent
Golan,
conspiracy
did I say
theories.
that?
Mend.
That's what you're saying.
You have
I'm
said
saying
that
I'm
3
glad that they're
times.
releasing it.
Mend, you
Mend,
have
did
said that now 4 times, and nobody has said to hide the information.
So what are we arguing about
What
here?
we're talking about is
Yeah.
what is going to come as a result of this. Because there are also other ways this could have been done. We could have said, let's support legislative pathways. Let's be transparent. Let's release these files. Let's enforce that release. Yes, but maybe we could demand a coherent process. Maybe we could give it a moment for redactions for alibis, witness safety, national security filters. No, we're going to do this. And as it's done, as a dump, because nothing in this world can be done properly anymore, because everybody is just running around with their hair on fire all the time. This is going to fuel 1,000 conspiracy theories and podcasts that are going to, by the way, you can tell me all you want that you don't think podcasts can do this, but we know podcasts can change minds, can change politics. Just look at Tucker alone and see how much damage he's done.
I just want to say, forget about Tucker. Go on. I just want to say,
I'm using him as an example.
But I just want to give a better example, because forget about Tucker. I want to tell you some of the biggest crime, the biggest podcasts are the crime conspiracy theories, right? Are the podcasts, right? So you have a bunch of people that are walking around that think Scott Peterson, right? That murderer, the guy that murdered his wife and his baby in California, where we have every single amount of evidence, that think he's actually innocent. You have the pilot from the Malaysia plane, right? Where there's so much evidence that he took the plane into the Indian Ocean, but because you have people doing these shows, you have people, so many people that have this, this unhealthy wanting for this conspiracy. So, man, please don't say I don't want them released. I'm simply talking about the people like that are going to read it, which are to the tunes of millions of people. That's
I think
all
you just
I'm saying.
made a point that there's a whole bunch of people out there, and all they do is trade in conspiracies all day long. And releasing this stuff is not going to get them to trade more in it. If anything, it'll get them to trade less in it. Or maybe they will actually start focusing in on some of the people who did things that they shouldn't have been doing at Epstein Island.
I love that you believe that, and I believe you do.
I love
believe
that too. I was going to say that too.
That's where I'm at.
But
I'm
I think
glad that they are releasing this stuff.
I think I'm going to quote Judah.
That's not what we're saying.
You are different than most people, because a giant document dump without context becomes a Rorschach test. Everyone's going to see what they want to see. A vague email, a redacted flight log, a passing reference in a witness interview. We already saw what happened to Leo DiCaprio because he was just mentioned as hey, wouldn't it be great if we invited him to a show or something? Suddenly, every scrap of BS is proof of someone's guilt. Conspiracy theories don't need evidence. You thinking this is going to reduce the number of conspiracy theories that are out there? Conspiracy theories thrive on ambiguity.
Hold on. Do you know what the prevailing
ambiguity
conspiracy theory
is this?
right now?
It's a big, messy document dump. This is what it is.
Do you know what the prevailing conspiracy theory about Epstein right now is on the internet?
He's a Mossad agent.
Mossad agent. Working for Mossad. Okay. This is all a Mossad op with the Americans and Mossad, and they were all doing it together.
And you think that's going to go away now?
And you think it could get worse? You think it's going to get worse by dumping the documents? Okay,
now,
let's see.
I still think we should strive.
That's what I'm asking for. I like transparency.
I want to move on, but I don't think you should scoff at things that you in particular have believed. I think that's an extremely dangerous thing to do, to scoff at somebody that we consider to be extremely open-minded, to scoff when you yourself believed many things.
Who's extremely open-minded?
What?
Who you talk? I'm open-minded, and I'm scoffing at that the conspiracy can get worse than them blaming the Jews? I can't. Sorry.
Oh, but
I'm
you see,
saying
now
they've already done it. They said
pushing
it's the Jews, it's
you're
Trump,
moving the
and it's Mossad, and it's
you're moving the
CIA.
goalposts because we didn't bring that up. You just brought that up for the later part of it. We didn't discuss that.
I
Discuss
was
what?
talking about the overall world-changing messiness of this because, again, I'll say this and then we can move on.
Yeah, we
If you
have to.
think about, yeah, that's fine. If you think about conspiracy theories, everything is evidence in a conspiracy theory. A redaction will be interpreted as a cover-up. The absence of a name will be suspicious as if it was removed. Random, unverified claims will be elevated as gospel. All the grifters online will weaponize the confusion. They are going to use this, and it's going to go forever because now they got document upon document upon document to use as evidence, even if nothing is there. Innocent people are going to be wrongly implicated. That's going to happen. Political tribes are going to release these things as weapons as they find out the little niblets that they can use against each other. It becomes a massive vacuum of uncertainty. Extremists love vacuums. Conspiracy theorists love vacuums. The less information, the more confusion, the more gobbledygook is out there, the more likely it is. It's like a fungus. It will grow and grow and grow. So yeah, I still think transparency is great. I agree with you, man. I think this is going to be an S show from top to bottom, and
Well,
it's going to get
anyways, let's
worse.
move
I
on
don't
to
think
the
it can get
next
worse
S
than this.
show.
Okay, moving on.
Let's move on to the next S show, which is the FBI and the crooks thing, because this is another perfect example, right? So the FBI whoever it was, the Secret Service did have his online footprint, or sleuths out there found his online footprint, and he was a furry. Right? He was a trans person. And after all is said and done, probably this is the part that the Biden DOJ did not want released, that the attempted assassin in Butler was a trans person, because that did not fit their narrative. And now we have that, as Miranda Devine from New York Post is calling it, they have to do another investigation in this person. The problem is, well, he was cremated 10 days later. The problem is they cleaned everything out of his house and probably threw out every single thing known to man. So here we're left with one of those other cases that will be in a conspiracy for years to come, because the Biden DOJ simply did not want to come out with the fact that this kid was a trans who had fantasies about some of the worst things known to man.
I know that the FBI did put out a response to Tucker when Tucker said that they claimed that there was no online presence. I think Kash Patel came out and said, we never said that. There are problems with the way the investigation was done, but that was the previous FBI. That wasn't under Kash Patel. That was under, who was it? James Comey?
I said the Biden DOJ. Yeah.
Yeah,
It was Merrick Garland. It was Ray at the FBI. It was that woman who is the head of the Secret Service. This was a trash show of an investigation.
The guy who was the head of security at Turning Point at this event went on Sean Ryan, and he was saying that the local PD said that they were going to put their guy on that roof, and they never did. And he goes, the hired security is subservient to local governments, local, police or whatever, law enforcement. He goes, and they said they're handling that. So we had to not handle it, or we relied on them. We trusted them to do it. And obviously they didn't do it. So there's a lot of weird things about this kid that doesn't
Super
make sense.
No, you just brought
and the whole case.
1 second. You just brought up two separate cases. I'm referring to the Butler kid.
You're talking about Thomas Crooks, right?
Yeah, that is attempted assassination.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah. So you're right. I confused the two. So the Charlie Kirk thing, there was weird stuff with that one. The Butler one, for sure, we know nothing about that guy. FBI made some weird statements under the previous administration, and Kash Patel came out and said that his administration never said that they don't have the online footprint. A lot of that footprint, you're right, as Miranda Devine went through, has come to light, where this kid, he was pro-Trump. He was a Trump supporter until the beginning of COVID, and then he flipped, and then he started making death threats and posing with guns and firing guns and all that stuff online, and became rabid anti-Trump. He went crazy with the anti-Trump stuff. The FBI surely knew about that. The Secret Service definitely knew about that. So there's a lot of unanswered questions of what happened there. Have you seen any of that go on?
Yeah, the weirdest part of the whole thing is this is an actual, like, we talk about it in these terms because of the way Trump reacted, maybe, or because wasn't successful, or for whatever reason, we kind of talk about it in these very light terms. But what we're actually discussing here is the actual attempted assassination of a sitting president of the United States. That's nuts. That's nuts
Yeah.
to think about, right? It's happened so few times that a president has been assassinated, thank God. But the fact that we're talking about this, hey, it's weird. Isn't it weird that this guy shot the president in the ear? Like, this is an insane thing. And the FBI treated it like he was a misunderstood kid who just wandered onto the roof with a rifle, oopsie boopsie. Like, this isn't taken seriously. And I don't want to fall into the conspiracy world where I'm like, why did they cremate the body? Why did they hide all this stuff? But it's hard not to
Well, it's nearly
sometimes.
impossible not to, especially if you remember the days after, at least in the Cash, for whatever people want to say, after the assassination of Charlie Kirk, Cash was doing press conferences, the DOJ was doing were doing press conferences. After Butler, there was like a blackout. Every day
It was silence.
you expected like the head of Ray to get in front of the cameras. And remember, they also rejected Trump's call for extra security from the Secret Service. There were so
We
many.
found out which agents, some of them kind of these, hey, no shade to the chunky ladies, but there were some chunky ladies suddenly on his detail that couldn't figure out how to holster their weapons. Like, the whole thing felt very odd. As again, I'm a screenwriter. So if I'm writing that scene the way it was written, my executive would hand me the script back and go, this doesn't make any sense. You got to rewrite this. This is not how the FBI acts. This is not how the assassins act. And this is also not how, after the fact, after someone attempted to kill the president of the United States, everything goes silent. It doesn't make sense. It's a fantasy world. Rewrite it. They wouldn't buy it from me. And here we're meant to just swallow it. And the weirdest part is how the silence that happened after with Thomas Crooks is like doubled down upon how weird that is by what we discovered later, because the kid basically was walking around with every single red flag you could possibly imagine. It was the online extremism. Someone said, I don't remember what article, but some article I read said he was bred for extremism, bred to hate the president, bred to be a guy who was going to try to assassinate him. And so they made it sound like this lone gunman. What a crazy, weird thing. He used to be a Trump supporter. Then he went nuts. So, okay, let's be quiet about it. Then you find out about his fetish subcultures. You find out about his trans identity. You find out about how isolated he was, his digital radicalization, all of this stuff that the FBI didn't mention. They pushed a lone gunman narrative. And I mean, again, I don't want to be a guy who goes down rabbit holes, but sometimes when everything is pointing in one direction, it's hard not to jump on the bandwagon of going, something's off here.
Listen, I think, remember before, I think the cremation thing was done after 10 days, was one of the first things everybody said. What?
Like,
Like,
what the hell?
what is going on here, man? That was like when I started, like, I immediately thought this whole thing was bizarre. But just when he was cremated after 10 days and I didn't see the head of the FBI or the DOJ, I thought something was up.
The cremation thing was weird. I also heard that his entire apartment was wiped.
Yeah.
You couldn't find a single fingerprint there. It was absolutely weird. Apparently, his cell phone pinged next to the FBI headquarters a few times, meaning that he visited, or someone from FBI visited his house a few times. There's a lot of weird stuff here. Let me just correct what I said, what the rapid response team under Kash Patel put out. They said the FBI has never said Thomas Crooks had no online footprint ever. So they're not saying under this administration. They're saying the FBI never said that. And in a Senate hearing, and this was the community response thing on X, FBI Director Paul Abbott disclosed a social media account believed to be associated with the shooter. So they have at least one proven public statement that he did have some sort of social media account. But this guy was in a gay relationship with a furry, someone who identifies as a furry animal. Clearly, he was radicalized. Something happened to him. He made a 180 turn from being pro-Trump to going out and trying to assassinate him. So there's a lot to look into. And like everything else that we've said under the previous administration needs to be redone. The Epstein investigation needs to be redone from top to bottom. This Butler, Pennsylvania investigation needs to be redone from top to bottom. I can't believe that under Kash Patel, they haven't already done that. This guy tried to assassinate the president, your boss, and you haven't turned over the house trying to figure out what the hell happened there. I can't justify
Yeah,
that.
listen, I happen, Golan, I want to move on a little bit too, but I disagree with him on the whole Epstein investigation. Release the freaking things, let every sleuth in America have a podcast about it. But yes, I do believe that the Butler thing truly needs to be reevaluated. I don't think the Charlie Kirk thing, I believe exactly who shot him. I don't believe in it, but the problem is conspiracies are born out of other actual real things that were not conspiracies. So you have this Butler thing. We still know nothing about the gunman in Vegas, right? The city that has more cameras than a Nokia factory. And we still know nothing about that. So I'm not one of these people that says, trust the government on everything, because I don't. I simply do not. I think there's a lot of weirdness, but that totally bred to this. And I don't even get it. I got to be honest. This Butler thing, I don't get. He's right. I don't get why Kash Patel hasn't looked further into it. I don't get why Pam Bondi hasn't looked into it.
Especially because of how freaking weird it is. The fact that there was this mass systemic breakdown. This should be the first one. Like all the other ones, fine. We can dislike the way they ran the events. We can dislike the way they did the investigations. This one is so bizarre. Just again, we're going to move on, but just think about the cremation of that body. Let's put everything else aside. You do something that fast. That kind of timeline means you have a limited, very limited, 10 days, right? Limited opportunity for independent investigators. You're talking about Congress, local coroners, oversight committees to personally inspect the body, to verify chain of custody, to do anything. There's no transparency. There's no trust. It destroys future forensic possibilities. There are cases where they like exhume the body years later and then they go, aha, it's like they deliberately did something to prevent truth from coming out. That one alone, even if you get rid of the whole other list of weird stuff, is enough for me to go, it's time to reinvestigate that.
But I'll go a step further. I just want to say this, just for people that are listening. I ask of you to tell me one assassin or one school shooter that we know nothing about their family, that we know absolutely zero, not just about their digital footprint, but their actual footprint. Okay, we're not even getting an actual footprint, man. Was there like a media blackout? Nobody's allowed to find out about this person's parents or his family or his friends or any of that stuff. I mean, you look at from Richard Jewell to these school shooters, we know everything before the story is almost out about what that kid or what that person ate for breakfast. We have nothing on this. Like absolutely zero. It was like, hey, don't talk to this kid's family. But what happened to journalism? I mean, how do we not know who this kid's parents are? Is this like the first time in history we're not allowed to know, man?
Yeah, I think we all agree that they need to launch a full investigation into this under Kash Patel.
But I'm saying actual footprint. I'm honestly, forget about digital sometimes. I really want, you brought up the FBI phone. I've never heard of that before. That's an actual footprint. That's a real footprint, right? That means somebody engaged with him in real life, not online life. It's a big difference. Should be investigated.
For sure. They need to look into the whole thing and figure out what the hell happened there. The guy tried to kill Trump. Trump is the president. Trump could order Kash Patel, figure it out, get to the bottom of it. That should be priority number one.
Well said. Okay, let's move on to this thing going on in Texas. So there's two things that happen in Texas today. One is really bad, and one I fear will have the same results. So they redistricted in Texas, 2-1 judges ruled against the redistricting. They said it was racist or whatever they came up with. So they're back to 2020-21 redistricting, which means people like Jasmine Crockett probably will keep her seat, and Republicans will have a really tight race the next year. And this is something that we often discuss, men, and we spoke about it with Gene Hamilton, are the judges. And you brought up, you sent us the James Comey story this morning. And the reality is the reason I don't even like talking about it is because I know he's not going to be found guilty. So it's like such a waste of a time for me as a story. But this thing in Texas, it's like enough. It's like, and this goes to show you every time people said about the election, remember that the story always was Trump got, they decided in 60 courts that there was no misdoings in the 2020 election. First of all, it's not true. The cases never got it to the courts. So this is what we're up against as a conservative movement, man, our judges.
Yeah, look, we discussed it with Gene. If we can get rid of some of these activist judges, that would be great. We saw, was it Bosberg is being brought up on
They're trying impeachment. They're trying. It's
impeachment.
not an easy thing to do, but they're bringing it up. Yes,
Um,
or Bosberg, however you pronounce his name.
Yeah, the case against former FBI Director James Comey. It seems like the prosecution may have bungled the case, and this is not an activist judge thing. This is it's not common for the defendant or the defense team to get the inside scoop on what was instructed to the grand jury when they decided to level charges against them. In this case, the judge says that there is so many mishaps with that process that he wants that information disclosed to the prosecution, to the defense team. So,
Well, let me counter that quickly, because remember, you had a judge in New York who could have done that 30,000 times when Trump was being convicted of 34 counts, 94 convictions he was facing. That judge could have thrown out everything. That wasn't a case. He allowed 5 different things to be turned into a felony, which should never have been allowed. I have a hard time believing that if this was Trump, that this judge would follow that same protocol. That's just my humble opinion.
I absolutely agree with that. I think the case against Trump was completely made up. They changed the statute of limitations to extend so that they could get Trump ensnared in that.
Well, that's for the civil one. That's with E. John Carroll. This is
Eugene
something,
Carroll.
Eugene Carroll, yeah.
Eugene Carroll. This is something totally different. This is where they just. But again, what I'm saying is, you're saying the judge in this. It's that he's saying the defense, the prosecutors messed up. What I'm just simply saying is, I doubt if Trump was on trial, he would have had the same response.
I agree. So
So hence activist judge.
we know that it was a witch hunt when it came to all of Trump's charges, from the financial stuff with the banks, with the loans, with the valuations of his properties. They assessed Mar-a-Lago, I think, at $20 million.
I think it was less. I think it was 15.
15 million. That's $1 billion property.
It's the most
It's-
insane. I mean, the most
I mean, if that doesn't-
obviously insane. part of the
Exactly.
equation.
That's what it is. They went so egregious with that it became obvious what they were trying to do. So in this case, and I don't know this
That
judge,
plus
and
the time limit they gave him to pay it back, plus
All of
the
it.
inability to do loans. Like they did everything in their power to make sure this was a
His
rat caught in a
parole,
maze
his
situation.
bail was like $300 million. I mean,
Right. And it had to be liquid. He
Yeah.
couldn't put anything up for it. Like they went so overboard that unless you were already a partisan, you looked at it. If you were an independent, okay, let's just look at it that way. If you were an independent and you looked at that, it would have been real difficult not to see that they were playing a game.
But I want to move on
For
though
sure.
back to this Texas thing. Go on.
That's what I wanted to do too.
Because this is
But
actually
just to rehash what's going on here with Comey is that the judge said, and I don't know which political affiliations this judge has, most likely a left-leaning judge, but let's put that aside for a second. The government's action in this case, whether it was purposeful or reckless or negligent, raised genuine issues of misconduct inextricably linked to the government's grand jury presentation. So what he's saying is that what they presented to the grand jury may have been wrong, illegal, whatever, misconduct, and he wants all that information handed over to the defense team so that they can make a case for Comey. I, for one, do not want to see Comey get off the hook. I want to see that guy behind bars. So I
Well,
am
don't
deeply
hold your
saddened.
breath.
yes.
Okay.
And what I'm saying to you is this judge would have had a very different reaction to if this was a conservative or Trump in front of the courtroom. He would never question the prosecutors. This is the problem. But getting back to Texas,
But this, by the way, this is the problem, not just with the courts, it's with the media, it's with everything else. Think about just, and then I promise I want to talk about the Texas thing, but think about if the would-be assassin of Trump had been wearing a MAGA hat. That would have been on the news every 6 minutes. That cycle would have gone till the sun burned.
I think
burned
Jimmy
itself
Kimmel
out.
thinks he probably was wearing a MAGA
Well,
hat.
there you go.
But get back to this redistricting
All right.
thing,
So
because
the thing that really stinks about the redistricting thing, because ultimately, again, you're talking about a judge, and we can say an activist judge, or I guess a federal judicial panel in this case. They blocked the Texas map. They called it racist. They said, we're not going to let you go through with this. Okay. In terms of it was drawn up by racial lines, which by the way, not totally wrong, but not racist in the negative. The idea was we're actually going to be expanding the number of black people who are in these districts. Anyway, Doesn't matter. It was blocked. Here's the part that's really bad is that Texas, I think, rightfully pursued an aggressive redistricting plan, right? Why? They wanted those 5 additional Republican leaning congressional seats. Okay, good move. Trump reinforced it. He said, yes, let's do it. We're owed those 5 seats, etc. California jumped on this, right? They said this is our political justification to now undertake our, at the time illegal until they passed their new law, mid-decade redraw. And they were saying, well, it's Republicans' actions that are making us do it. They're necessitating us to do this defensive response. Now that the Texas thing is shut down, the California thing's not going to get shut down. So what'll actually happen was instead of it being something where it's 5 and then they come up with 5 and now these 5 are going away, they're going to double on the California side. So it's almost like they didn't just expand on the California side, they double expanded because of our loss, because of the Republican loss in Texas now. So this contrast is really stark. It's worse than the fact that this didn't work or the fact that it was shut down by an activist judge. In the attempt to increase its influence that was halted by the courts, California now has doubled the amount of influence they were intending with their redistricting. It's incredibly bad.
So let's go to the next thing, though. The good thing that, again, it's
They're also going to appeal that to the Supreme Court. They are going to appeal it, and it's worth noting that the judge in the Texas case is a Trump appointee. So
Well,
the guy
again,
who
judging-
shot it
it was
down,
a
Jeffrey
judging
Brown, is a
panel,
Trump
right.
appointee. He shot it down, and I believe that the reason that the Republicans were redrawing the map was to get away from racial preferences and just go with.
That's right. They were trying to expand. They were trying to be more inclusive of other races.
Yeah.
And let me just say something, by the way, for the record. Just because Trump appoints a judge, that doesn't mean they're a conservative or a Republican.
Agreed.
You know, this
Agreed.
is what's constantly misunderstood. When you have to appoint a lot of judges from the federal to the district or whatever it is, you are not going to do it perfectly. You're getting bad advice oftentimes. But good for Greg Abbott today. I think he really needs to be praised for announcing that the CAIR and the Muslim Brotherhood are both terrorist organizations, and that it can no longer buy property in Texas. Like, you know, I'm constantly being reminded about this on Truth when I talk about the Islamic problem in Dearborn, where apparently today they had everybody was woken up to a call to prayer. I'm not kidding about that. But man,
Where was this?
in Dearborn,
Michigan.
in Michigan.
Well, Dearborn.
No. That's a
Dearborn, Kabul, you mean?
That's a big story. I mean, that's a huge thing. Can you imagine waking up in the morning?
Didn't they give them permission to do so? Isn't that the first place that they're allowed to do the
Yeah.
Muslim call to prayer?
I mean,
Did everyone hear it?
like if I hear
like a
that,
bird.
if I hear that, I'm getting under my bed with my dog. Okay, I'm jumping on the 10 highway and getting the hell out of Dodge. But man, this is a big story. Good for Greg Abbott. And the reason I bring this up is people don't realize that Texas has been invaded by Islamists. They have over 300. Listen, I know this story is deniable or whatever. That supposedly they've had at least 50 mosques built since 2023. They have so many. And you think to yourself, this is the last place it would happen, right? Is Texas. You don't associate.
That's why it's happening there.
That's right. You don't associate, hey, Texas and mosques.
Right. Texas is supposed to be red-blooded Americans, and next thing you know, you're having Allahu Akbar. It's great that Abbott did it. President should do it. You
I
know,
agree.
the Muslim Brotherhood is banned in so many Muslim countries.
This was going to be my point. Men, thank you. Yes. Keep going. This shouldn't be state. This should be federal. Keep going.
This should be done on a federal level. Muslim Brotherhood is banned in Egypt. It's banned in Saudi Arabia. It's banned in UAE. It's banned in Jordan. It's banned in a lot of Middle Eastern countries, which leads me to this phenomenon that we're seeing now, where Israel is going to be embraced in its neighborhood, which is something that never happened. And Israel's facing the most opposition in the West now. The tables have flipped. And the only way for this to kind of get okay would be for Saudi Arabia and some of these other countries to jump on the Abraham Accords and to prove to the wokesters here that the biggest Muslim countries are accepting Israel and you woke fools won't. That's the way that Israel's trying to see their way out of this thing. What we're seeing, you know, with Texas banning the Muslim Brotherhood and CAIR, that should be done, as Golan said, on a national level. The president should do this, just like a lot of other sane countries have done.
Well, just to give you,
100%.
well, and just to whatever amplify his point, is that we have now evidence that CAIR was giving money to people on the college campuses that were obviously not there for a good time. So
Really, I'm shocked.
well, listen, it's important when actually you have documentation to prove it, because listen, these are things all of us know. The difference is often you can't say to somebody, well, here's the receipt. Well, today we have the receipt that CAIR is a terrorist organization that is terrorizing our college campuses. They are terrorizing America.
And it's worth pointing out that Biden put CAIR on the anti-Semitism task force. Just to remember
And
where we were.
Obama let them into the White House.
Yes.
Here's the thing. My favorite part of this is what I think happens next. Because what does CAIR do every time? Like the little that they are, what they do as a matter of standard practice. When anyone brings up anything that they've done, these unindicted co-conspirators in the largest terrorist case in U.S. history. Let's not forget that. This isn't the first time. We know CAIR are just an arm of the Muslim Brotherhood. There's a whole long thing that I have done on my other podcast on Jew Can't Handle the Truth. And we've talked about a lot of it here too. These guys have been terrorists for a very long time, have supported terrorists for a very long time, have financed and given actual physical aid to terrorists for a very long time. So what will they do? Predictably, they will sue. And they sue everyone. It's their playbook. I say good. This is going to be my favorite part, because a lawsuit means discovery. And if Trump or Abbott or whoever it is that is going to have to run the table on this, depending on if we do state or national, which is why I want it to be national, this is where we actually can move the needle. Discovery means opening their books. It means revealing their communications. It means examining their financials. It means we are going to scrutinize their foreign ties in a way that they've never had scrutinized before. I understand that there are shell corporations. I understand that there are overlying ownerships. I understand that there are crypto shelters. I understand all of this stuff. And it allows, as well as many other things, by the way, donations to universities and nonprofits and super PACs. There's 1,000 ways to get money from terrorist organizations where no one can find out about it. We'll do a whole rant about that another time. But if discovery occurs and we dig into this thing with needle and thread and a microscope, we might just be able to prove it to the point where CAIR, after all of its long-running controversies, actually gets destroyed. That's what I'm hoping for. Let's drag it all into the sunlight.
You're preaching to the choir. The problem is the person that should be doing this is Rubio, is obviously Trump. And,
agreed 100%.
And listen, we obviously know why Trump is not doing this, because it affects.
CAIR is a Qatar-backed organization, and Trump, for some reason, is cozying up to Qatar.
Yeah,
so as he meets with the
but
Saudi
it's important to note. It's important to note Texas is not banning mosques. Wait, it's important to note this. Texas is not banning mosques. They are not banning Muslims. They are targeting an organization or organizations whose political, financial, their affiliations, their conduct raises legitimate national security questions. And that's what they're doing. So if we're going to do it above board, we shouldn't have to worry about what all these other people have to say, unless they too are terrorist organizations or terrorist-aligned organizations. Qatar. Right.
I just want to bring up something though quickly, because I want to get to one more story that I think is very important. Man, you brought up a really good point, and I know you keep on hammering this, but you're 100% right too, which is the Qatar thing. Right. So you see this from everybody in the sphere of talking bobbleheads, is that obviously their sole thing, they have a tunnel vision on Israel, but yet they have no issues with us offering to put troops on the ground in Qatar. They have no issues with us selling fives to Saudi Arabia or promising them troops on the ground. You have no issue.
A Qatar base in the middle of Idaho, let's not forget.
A Qatar base in the middle of Idaho. None of these things, man, that seem to be America first, right? But they seem to be part of Trump, Middle East peace plan. But it's so bizarre that none of them are calling out the Islam issue. It's like, what the hell is going on? Which could only lead us to think two things. One, they're sympathizers with Islam, or they're being paid. It's one or the other.
Or they've been cowed and so afraid that they're going to be called racist that everyone is afraid to say anything,
I
right?
don't
'Cause
buy the racist
I
thing.
don't
I
buy
you
don't
it
don't
buy
think
that
either.
at
so?
all.
I buy it for a large swath of the population. I do.
Think when it comes to Qatar, a lot of these guys are paid, and this administration don't understand.
Sorry, I meant citizens. When you're talking about the decision makers, I agree with you 100%.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, when it comes to citizens, you're right. I don't understand Trump's calculations on Qatar. I understand what he's trying to do in the Middle East. I understand what he's doing here at home. Everything that he's done with tariffs, the war in Russia and Ukraine, all of it made sense. The only one that has glaring contradictions is this thing with Qatar. And the reason being is that Qatar is a backer of Hamas. They are the backer of the Muslim Brotherhood. The Muslim Brotherhood, Hamas, ISIS, Hezbollah, those are all the things that Trump is trying to get past with peace in the Middle East. Yet Qatar is their biggest backer, followed by Turkey. So you have these two nations.
Number one with a bullet. This is the most successful terror laundromat that exists
Pun
in
intended.
the world.
Pun intended.
Yeah, pun intended, but universities, think tanks, media outlets, diplomatic back channels, this is the number one by far. Sorry,
Okay,
man,
so
go ahead.
go on. Let's move on quickly because we have a really big problem. A new poll came out today, and so how I'm always interested in the influence of these crazy of the radicals in our party. I think we have our answer today, but a very frightening number came out that 64% of Democrats um associate or pro
Are okay
socialism.
with.
Or pro no, or I think it's a good thing. That's think that socialism is a good thing. And that's 64% of the Democrat Party, which I hate using that because I don't believe it's the Democrat Party anymore. But Republicans is totally the opposite number, but there's still 13% of Republicans that think socialism is the right way. So that's my take on 13%. I think that's where our number is right now of who we should be scared to death of in the conservative party is at 13%. But 64% of Democrats, no.
But wait, I don't have the thing in front of me, so you may have to give me some additional numbers if you can pull them up. It wasn't that everybody was like gung ho about it. It was a sliver that said they were like super pro, and then there were another sliver that said they were moderately pro, and other ones were like, "Ah, we're fine with it," or "We don't even know what you're talking about." And then there were a bunch that were against it, right? Isn't that right? Weren't there
No,
tiers to the
I'm giving
excitement
you.
level?
I'm giving you the highest numbers. And before I lost my screen, I actually had this in front of me. So if you'll bear with me, so
That's fine. While you're looking for that,
no, I
I
have
will
it right.
say
I have it right in front of
you
me.
do have it. Okay, go ahead.
Among Democrats, a solid majority, 62%, said they have a favorable view of socialism. Of those,
Favorable.
16% they have a very favorable view, and 47% have a somewhat favorable view. Only 16% of Democrats said that they have an unfavorable view of socialism, and 22% remain unsure. um so that's your that go on. I think my numbers stand. I don't think I said anything incorrect there.
Okay, fair enough. Before I even say this, we do have to keep in mind, I want to make sure we keep the temperature where it needs to be, that polls are BS, right? That how you ask the question in a poll can affect everything. So when you say to me, 62% say they're super in favor, well, were they asked, do you support a system where government ensures everyone has basic economic security? Because if the answer to that is yes, that's socialism, right? So they may not ask, do you support socialism? They may say, do you support corporations controlling everything? It's like,
This
well,
wasn't the
no, I
question.
don't.
No, the question was, this was the question. This wasn't
They showed you the question. I
yeah,
don't think they did.
this is not. It was done by economist YouGov, and
I understand. But what I'm
the
saying is
survey asked.
pollsters.
I'm telling
Yeah.
you exactly what the survey
Okay.
asked. They
Go ahead.
asked respondents across the country, "Do you have a favorable or unfavorable opinion of socialism?" I don't think it could get more clear than that.
That's the question that was
Yes, that
actually
was the
asked.
exact question.
Well, then I take back what I say, and holy S, as they say in Australia. I don't understand at what point we became cool with socialism being a serious policy option instead of a historical catastrophe wrapped in what looks like good intentions. Look, I'm not surprised that Democrats are embracing this. Their slow motion tumble into idiocy has been pretty stark. And the fact that the what was it, 38 Muslims got elected along with a bunch of Democratic socialists. I mean, that says a lot, right? So, okay, that group, sadly, might be a little lost, and we'll see how long they have to wander in the desert before they find their brains again. The Republicans, though, you're saying with that question, 13% of them said, "Yay, socialism."
It's not a really long story. So, Matt, while you respond to this, go on. Please look at your WhatsApp.
No. I read it. I'm saying that part is genuinely alarming.
And and
That's
what I just said to you, I've been wondering what the
yeah.
number is of who has been influenced by the pod sphere. And that is what I believe the number to be is 13% of the movement
I think
that
you're absolutely right,
is who.
especially, and I'm sorry to invoke Tucker again, but especially when you have a guy who has that kind of platform, who is championing Maduro and championing Putin and championing Iran and
Okay, what was going
championing
to happen?
China.
What could go
What
wrong?
did they think was going to happen when he says something like even Sharia law he was championing, let's not forget. So he's championing all the worst anti-West ideologies, and a bunch of people are buying into it. Why? And Men said it really well earlier, because he's blaming the Jews. So if you're like, yeah, that's an easy scapegoat. What's the solution? Socialism? Communism? Sharia law? Sounds good, Tucker. What did we think was going to happen? And nobody's stopping him. J.D. Vance certainly isn't. So, yeah, I think you're absolutely right about that. I think your assessment is dead on.
I was just wondering the number, man.
It's concerning, but it's not surprising. Democrats have been
Well, the 13% up on our side, that's
that I don't totally believe. You got to question that number. 13% of conservatives
don't
are
believe
down with
that
socialism.
13% of Republicans listen to Tucker Carlson and follow him and agree with him?
I don't know the number, but yes, he has a large
That's
following.
what I'm saying. That's what
That's
I
what
was
he's
saying.
saying.
Remember, I keep on saying on this show, I want to know the numbers. Like, I really want to know what influence this is having. You're right. Maybe it's 12%, maybe it's 10%. Either way, it's 7 and 10 Republicans have an unfavorable view of socialism. That's the big number. The smaller number in that is 13% actually have a favorable view. YouGov and Econ have a fairly decent track record. This is a fairly as straight up a question as you could possibly have. This isn't saying, what does your neighbor believe? This isn't saying,
Yeah, what was the question? What was that qualifying
Well,
question?
that's the one
Was it,
that
do you
he just
believe that
read
we
to
should all
me.
share the cost of, do you believe we should all share the cost of the fire department and police department and healthcare? Or was it, do you believe that the country should get rid of capitalism and go with socialism?
I read the exact.
Well, that was my question, man. But the question, if what is written there is accurate, the question they asked was a
It's in
straightforward
quotes.
question.
What are you guys, the people on True Social to me? I'm actually giving you the exact quote of the question.
So
Do
let me
you
hear it
have a
again. Go for it.
favorable or
Okay.
unfavorable opinion of socialism? You can't be more. That is the exact
Okay,
quote.
that's pretty straightforward.
That's pretty straightforward.
Okay, do we have a consensus now? I mean, like, I feel like I'm a truth where I got to send you guys where I actually did send it to you, go on the proof. Like, I'm gonna I'm gonna tell something that's unfactually the correct answer or question.
No, you know what? You did send it, and I read it, and my first instinct is always to. Well, Ben and I both did. My first instinct is always to question the pollster, because I know how that works. They're like, "Are you in favor of dead babies?" People are like, "No," and they're like, "A bunch of people hate Israel." Whoa, wait a minute, that's not what you asked. So they do that stuff all the time. So the fact that here they put in quotes what the actual question was kind of bypassed me when I read it, because I'm so not used to that kind of straightforwardness. The fact that that was the question and we're still at about 13%, let's say the margin of error, let's say it's 10%, fine. That's still concerning. 10% is not nothing. And if 10% is, Judah, your theory of Tucker trying to carve off enough people to become president, again, I don't buy that one, but I do buy that he's trying to carve off enough people to determine who the next president is.
Yeah, I just thought that was. I just want to close up shop today by asking you guys I mean, I want to be honest. MBS was at the White House today. He's refusing to do the normalization. He's refusing to join the Abraham Accords at this point. And I don't think it's unfair for that reporter to ask him about Khashoggi. I have no problem with the murder of Khashoggi since he was a freaking Muslim member of the Muslim Brotherhood, and he was a terrorist supporter. I have no problems with that. Be honest about that. I wish somebody would come out and say, hey, this guy Khashoggi, he was a lot like the UNRWA or the Gaza reporters. He was not an honest broker, man, in the game of reporting. Having MBS, and he's been there before. What are your thoughts on that? I mean, we've all lived through 9/11, and I know it's 25 years ago, and things change in history, and he's supposedly more moderate than his father, and people change. Does he have to pay for the sins of his father? I know that's not a
I already
popular.
know men's answer.
Yeah,
No,
Here
MBS
we
say,
go.
hey,
Here we
don't ask
go.
him any questions. Men will really get mad about that.
I know I just thought of that, man. That was not a setup.
That was good. That was good. That was good. All right.
Well
So
done. For those
Saudi
listeners who were listening yesterday, that was a little Easter egg for you.
Saudi Arabia is a complicated bag because of their past. Now, it's worth noting that when the royal family of Saudi Arabia wanted backing for them to be the royals, this is before they had control of the country, they made a deal with the imams and they said, you could teach Wahhabi Islam and we will fund you. We will back
Why don't
your
you explain
mosques.
what that is?
So it's the most extreme form of Islam, and that's where Al Qaeda comes from. That's where ISIS comes from. That's where all these crazy forms of Islam comes from. It's Wahhabism, and they were spreading it around the world. Here in America, in our jails, and they were just pushing that everywhere. But now with this guy who murdered Khashoggi, just for the record, I could care less about Khashoggi. To me, that's an internal problem that happened to them in Turkey and Saudi Arabia. And Turkey is the one that actually recorded him and exposed them. So Saudi Arabia hates Turkey. I can't stand Erdogan of Turkey. So great. Let them hash it out.
It's hilarious.
As far as Saudi Arabia today, they've really turned a corner. Now, Saudi Arabia is the counterweight to Iran. Iran is funding all of the crazies right now. Iran is Shia. They're funding Sunni militias, which is, I believe, Hezbollah. Maybe it's a Shia militia. But they are funding Sunni militias like, I think Hamas. I think Hamas is Sunni and Iran is Shia. So Shia and Sunnis usually hate each other. Iran and Saudi Arabia are the two powerhouses, and they hate each other because they have this different form of Islam. Same thing with Iraq. Iran war was the same thing. Shia versus Sunni. It's been Shia versus Sunni going back to the days of the Muhammad's grandson. And now you have Saudi Arabia. They've turned a corner. They have reformed. They are pushing normalization with Israel. They are pushing for the Abraham Accords. They are the counterweight to the crazies. And if you don't have that, then you just have radical Islamists running through the Middle East. You need these countries like Saudi Arabia to come to the table and say, we're going to push the sane version of Islam to our masses. And it's not just Saudi Arabia. So you have
Bahrain.
Bahrain and Morocco, and there's a whole bunch of countries that are pushing.
I like making it very.
They are pushing what we want. They are pushing a coexistent form of Islam. If
You're
you
saying
don't
Saudi
have that,
is.
Saudi and UAE basically are the big drivers.
But there's
for
a
that.
problem.
What
There's
is
a
it?
problem. And the problem is it's a global problem because we have to stop pretending that Saudi Arabia sitting outside the Abraham Accords is just, they're going to push their stuff and it's all going to be, they want coexistence and all that. It's not neutral. It's not harmless. It's not status quo. It is one of the most strategically dangerous holdouts in modern geopolitics, right? You're talking about, these are the keepers of Mecca and Medina, and these guys are refusing to join the Abraham Accords. A bunch of the rest of the Arab world is moving forward, and they're not. That is we could pretend it's ideological. It's not. We can pretend it's about Palestine. It's not. It's a calculated power play. And MBS knows what he's doing. He knows that normalization with Israel is the linchpin that would completely, from Saudi I'm talking about, is the linchpin that would completely reshape the Middle East, top to bottom. He knows that. It would change things economically, militarily, and diplomatically. One second. If Saudi doesn't come to the table and do this, what they're basically saying to all of the others, I'm talking about the bad actors, Tehran and Doha and the Muslim Brotherhood and all of those, that everyone who is looking to destroy peace, this gives them hope that the Abraham Accords can be undone. Because if the people holding Mecca and Medina aren't on board, extremism can reclaim that moral or immoral high ground. That one decision leaves the door open, and that's a problem. regardless of how they act in terms of like their day to day.
So today, I believe it was at the White House, Prince Mohammed bin Salman signaled that there was progress moving ahead, but his actual statement was, we believe having good relationship with all Middle Eastern countries is a good thing, and we want to be part of the Abraham Accords. He said those words. We also want to be sure that there's a clear path to a two-state solution. This is where it gets problematic.
And this is a lie. They don't care. They don't care about Palestine. They don't care about a two-state solution. This is just a power play. This is just them using strategic BS in order to maintain that power play and let everybody know we are the captain now.
Well, what he's done in the past is he said he could care less about Palestine. He said that. But he also said, my people care. My people care about it. He goes, and if I recognize now, and maybe it's a lie, maybe it's just a ploy, maybe it's just a way for him to get F5s now and kick the can down the road. But I hope that they would be moving to that. I know that that's what Trump wants. Trump realizes that if he could make peace in the Middle East, one is he'll be labeled the greatest president ever, but more than that, it'll be economically.
Yeah, they gave $1 billion investment today. And I just want to, we're running out of time.
Billion or trillion?
And by the way, that him saying, oh, we want to, and him giving that money.
Was it $1 billion or a
part
trillion?
Of the ploy.
A trillion.
I think
it's a $1 trillion investment.
It's $1 trillion, and it's all. By the way, these are the same guys trying to buy Warner Brothers right now, trying to influence us culturally as well. Not yet is not a strategy. Not yet is a vacuum. Vacuums are filled in the Middle East by Iran and China and Russia and people who blow up buses. This is not something where we can kick the can down the road, to use your words.
I just want to
every day this is delayed is another day that Iran is emboldened and that America, and this is where it's important, loses influence to Beijing. China is working with Riyadh. This is all happening because of this not yet BS.
Well said, both of you. And listen, there's nobody's assessment on this that I trust more than either of you. Let me just be clear about that. This is not like the Epstein thing where we could argue back and forth. There is nobody's assessment on the situation on the ground than I trust more than either of you. But I want to get to something MTG said today. And she basically accused Trump of being a traitor. And, what's tearing apart the MAGA world is Epstein files, which I truly do not believe is what tore the MAGA world apart. Israel is what tore the MAGA apart.
Conspiracy theories.
Yeah. If you want to be honest, you jackass, it's this Israel thing, and it's what's tearing apart so many of our major cities. When you look at Mamdani getting in, when 40% of people voted that Israel was their major issue. But she said something very interesting, and this is the thing. Let me tell you what a traitor is. A traitor is an American that serves foreign countries and themselves. A patriot is an American that serves the United States of America, like the women standing behind me now, Green continued. So he's talking about the Epstein women. And let me tell you something. One of them's not American. One of them I wouldn't trust if I fell asleep on an airplane. I would wake up in a different airplane, okay? I'm not going to say who. Nobody could get any digital footprint back to me of who I'm referring to. And I just want to say that if these women know names, stop playing the game of future documentary. And Marjorie Taylor Greene's the same thing. Say the damn names. So you know what, man? You're right about a lot of the things you've said about Epstein. I agree with you. I'm not disagreeing with you on things. But these people keep on saying, we have the names. Release the name.
Yeah, you don't pull a press conference and say we have the names. You call a press conference and you release the names.
Right.
It's all.
That's a brilliant.
BS.
If people actually got that, what you were talking about, I would say that's a brilliant name for a title.
2 days in a row. That would
no, not yesterday. It was the day before. But
was it the day before?
It was. I think it was the day before. But yeah, it's exactly right. Like I get it. You gals are trying to save this up for a future miniseries. It feels like we are living in one big miniseries. Okay. On that note,
well, 1 second before you get off, one little thing.
It better be little.
First of all,
Mandamni little turned into 26.
Zoran Mandamni made his first endorsement. He did not endorse Kathy Hochul. Actually, his supporters are threatening to derail her re-election campaign if she doesn't agree with everything he's demanding. So that backfired on Kathy Hochul. But he did endorse Aber Kawas, a Palestinian activist who moved to New York City last year after earning her master's.
Really, I'm shocked again today.
Master's in Islamic Liberation Theology from South Africa. How did this woman get into the country to begin with? And why is she running for office? One other thing is that there's massive protests going on in Mexico right now, and a lot of people touted Scheinbaum, the president of Mexico, who's a liberal socialist, pro-Palestine, wearing the keffiyeh,
At least
wearing
she's
a
more
cross.
Jewish than Dave Smith.
She's just up there with him. Anyway, this woman has renounced her Jewishness to the largest extent possible. Yet, when they attacked the presidential compound or whatever palace in Mexico they got, on the door they wrote Judea, which means like a filthy private parts Jew. So, or a dirty whore, Jew whore is what
Thank
they're
you for
calling
the
her.
men 2 minute. I think it's extremely important. But what you should be saying is this: when it comes to the governor's race, is that Republicans need to spend everything they have in their war chest to get Elise Stefanik elected as the next governor of New York State.
I
That's
agree
what
with that.
that is what the focus should be on. Every dollar they have go on should be spent on getting Elise Stefanik in. Aside from being, she is an amazing woman, amazing congresswoman. I love the fact that she gave up the ambassadorship. If you want to know what true what's the word I'm looking for, go on, what true patriotism to your party is,
Sacrifice.
what true sacrifice is that she did not run. She took down her ambassadorship to the United Nations so we would have an extra seat in the House. And that is as commendable as anything I could think of. And they should give her anything she wants to run for New York governor. She should be on the streets, everything possible.
Wait, so you're not for Aberkawas, the woman who blamed 9/11 on America
Well, I
and
am in Gaza.
said, let's mess
I
with
am
the
in
Israeli
Gaza. I
lobby?
am for Gaza's next mayor. That would be fantastic.
Deporter. Actually, talking about deportations, I'm past the point of wanting just to deport the illegals. I want to deport everyone who wants them to stay. Deport them all. The defenders, these people that are blocking the ICE vans, get them the hell out too.
I don't just listen. I'm not gonna. I said this yesterday to you at the end of the show. I
And
said,
if
love
only it were that simple.
love it or leave it, man. Love it or leave it.
It becomes clearer and clearer every day how unhinged these liberals are. They say 25% of liberals are on medication for mental illness. And that means that 75% of them are running around untreated.
On that note, I want to thank everybody. Listen, we talk about stuff. I got to say sometimes that it's not easy. We disagree. We have some extremely thought-provoking conversations that a lot of people disagree with. It'd be far easier, if far more expedient for us if we were to toe the party line all the time. But I can't do it. It's just something I cannot do. And I have no problem questioning Trump. As we well know after yesterday and many times, no problem questioning J.D. Vance. And I wish more people would do it. And becoming the next president, anything we've learned from the left, it's not a right or a privilege to become the next president. Okay? There have to be primaries and people have to show why they should become the next president. They learned that lesson with Hillary and they learned that lesson with Kamala Harris. I do not want to learn that lesson with J.D. Vance, okay? And important to note, because I posted that yesterday, it's been 40 years since a vice president took over for a president, okay? So let's not be under the assumption that's an automatic bid. I do not want to be on like I call for primaries 100%. And that's all I have to say about that. On that note, I want to thank everybody that's been listening to the show. From the bottom of our hearts, I want to wish everybody good morning, afternoon, and night world, wherever you are. God bless you all.